Recently, I just watched the remake or the reboot of Children of the Corn. This movie was shot and produced and finished production and everything else in the year of 2020 during the year of the pandemic. And 3 years later, it's now in theaters. And honestly, I have not remember watching the original Children of the Corn because I was like 5 years old, and all I remember from Children of the Corn was that there was this boy and he was like being crucified, and there was this giant weird lighting thing that just killed the kid or whatever. So that's all I remember about Children of the Corn, but I knew the concept of that, like these are these weird kids from a small town killed all of the adults, and that was just pretty much it. So I didn't really know the whole damn story of Children of the Corn. So then when I saw the remake, I was just like, all right, let me see if they will probably do better, because I heard that the originals and the sequels and all weren't really that good. And honestly, I think that the remake, sorry, will probably would do a good job, especially since now we're in this day and age where we kind of have the technology to actually make the creatures in certain scenes look actually better. But I was wrong, because for a person who knows little to nothing about Children of the Corn and who barely remembers watching the original Children of the Corn, in this movie with the rating, I would normally would just give it a 5 because it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. It was just a movie that you could just feel like, you know what, I don't want to see it in theaters. If you do see it in like a streaming service, you probably will skim through it. It's a movie that kind of feels like it's just dragging and kind of just wasting your time, which is kind of sad because you kind of, the positive about this movie, let me just give you the positive about this movie. The positive about this movie is that this movie goes straight to the point in the beginning. Like, it just goes straight to the point. Like, you just see this teenager, he comes out of the corn and he just starts killing people. They give you more of a reason why we see the main villain, the little girl, who did a fantastic job. She did a fantastic job as, like, you know, the crazy girl and who's in charge of why these kids are killing all of the adults. Like, she was fantastic throughout the whole thing. Like, you just wanted to just hate her because, and you just honestly can tell like this girl was crazy and she did a fantastic job. Meyer, I think that's how you pronounce her name, as Eden. She is the one who carried this movie. She is the villain of the one who's controlling all of the children who do these horrible acts to the adults, and also to feeding the adults to this corn monster. Which I have to say about the negative part about this movie was that when we see the demon or the corn monster, it was just very laughable because once you show the demon corn, it literally looks like Groot. I am Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy. Yes, just think of Groot from like the first Guardians of the Galaxy, but with corn instead of a tree. It's just corn. It was just like very, very, like very laughable, and like I was just like the whole time that I kept seeing the monster, I was just like, this is Groot. Like Groot. Groot is just pretty much just massacring these people. But other than that, going back to the negatives, well, positive about this movie was that it has some creative kills. It has some decent amount of kills. And if you want to go to see Children of the Corn just for the kills, well, there were two scenes that was very, very interesting of how they were able to kill the adults. But other than that, like, you know, there were some good kill scenes from there. But back to the negatives, the movie, the issue that with the movie it has, even though it goes straight to the point and didn't kind of feel like it just went to a fast pace, it still feel like it was a waste of time because there were a lot of questions that needs to be answered, because they were just certain things that certain characters were mentioning to certain aspects, and they didn't go full explain mode about it. Like, for an example, like there was a scene with Eden when she was killing the priest, because in the beginning of the movie, if you guys care for spoilers, because this is going to be spoilers throughout my whole review, if you're the first time people watch my videos, that once the beginning of the movie, when the teenager killed all the adults in the orphanage, they try to eliminate or drawn out the actual kid or teenager that's doing the killing. So they put like this huge like tube of like poison or gas, which end up killing all of the kids in the orphanage in the building besides Eden. And there is where you kind of get a better understanding of Eden's like hatred towards the adults, because this movie focused on why Eden hates the adults, and they did a fantastic job about that. But the things that, like what I mentioned, like there were things that they mentioned but they never go anywhere, was there was a scene with her and the priest, and she was about to kill the priest, and the priest was just like, I wanted to save, the whole cornfield and all of this stuff. And she was like, you're right, but you have sin. And it doesn't explain like what he did to her, but like if you probably like think about it, you probably think that, he did some nasty things to her. But there are just certain things like for this example that they talk about, but they don't fully explain or they don't go anywhere with that. So for the main hero, Elena, the actress, she was someone who I think who pretty much did an okay job. There were certain most of the times of her scenes she was just kind of like overacting, but I feel like that was the director's fault because of the fact that she's trying her best to try to do certain scenes pretty well. And I feel like the director or the producers, they could have just told her, like, give her directions on like, okay, like which correct tones, because she did the tones in certain scenes pretty well, but then there were things where I just do feel like she was being like over the top. And honestly, I just do feel like it was just the script as well, because this movie is somewhat is like an hour and like kind of like 40 minutes or so. It's not pretty that long because it's just not a long movie. But I do feel like, this scene or this story would have been better as like a series, like if you did it as more of like a one season kind of show instead of an actual movie. But this whole time, like I was just watching her, the script and everything else just wasn't doing anybody justice. But other than that, like that 12-year-old girl, the evil girl, the main villain, she just carried this movie. That's what I believe. Like this 12-year-old girl carried the movie. Yeah, and there was also too one of the things I also wanted to go piggyback on what I said in this review, how they have pick up certain things and they don't go anywhere. Like there was a scene with the main girl, the hero girl, her mother is actually cheating on her dad, and they don't really go anywhere with that. But her mother died, so that was a plus. I actually did like that. But yeah, but other than that, like this movie, like I said, this movie is kind of pretty forgetful. I heard like this series or this film series was just like a massive failure because they had like 11 adaptations or sequels and they all weren't that good. So as of this point, like this film series is kind of reminding me of that Vince Carter meme that goes out there everywhere, and it just continues to like keep going and going and going. But other than that, let me know down in the comment section what you guys do feel about Children of the Corn. Did you guys see it? Did you guys love it? Do you guys like the sequels, the originals? Let me know down in the comment sections and your thoughts on how you guys feel about this film. Pretty much Children of the Corn is a simple concept: kids killing the adults and taking over a town by an evil demon. But when it comes to making it a movie, it's just a failure. But other than that, this is Mr. Monotone. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Be safe out here, and bye.